Oh, they got it.
Hey, you sitting here? Oh, that's right. Yeah.
You can record this conference, really record this.
Well, I'm interested because we've been photographing people as we come down. And what we're interested in is finding out which is my long phone.
The other way, Victor.
And if,
Get out.
I know there's some major camps you were talking about, so I'd like to start with perhaps Bill Pitka's camp.
Well, no, but I guess Bill's is one of the oldest. Either he or Elsie. Pitka. That's on the inside. But coming down from the bridge, you got George Atwood camp. And he's fairly new there, about maybe 5 years old. And then Bill Pitka's camp on that island right across from the cliffs, just on the Big Bend below Ray River.
Do you know how long Bill had his camp there?
I don't know. He's had it there for quite a while. Do you know? Bill Pitka.
Well, he was camped on the bluff. You know, you can see his old dry.
The old camp right below the cliffs, yeah.
You know, on the other side of the river from him.
Yeah.
And then about 1973.
About 72. Right around it there. He moved across.
He moved over on the island.
But they fished that eddy, that Big Eddy for quite a while. Because the old man fished that for quite a few years before young Bill.
Seems like I came up here in 64. And we went on up to the Ray, and if I remember right, Bill was up there that year, but he had that arthritis. Fought him a lot.
It was the old William.
I met him at his camp.
Huh?
I saw him at his camp one year.
Yeah.
And I know he caught a lot of kings right there, too, it seems like.
It's a good eddy.
Very good.
It's been a good eddy for years. A good producer.
It narrows down right there, you see. That river narrows down pretty good.
And then the next camp below the Pitka camp would be Tucky Mayo. And then the next camp below his, on the inside of what we call the first island here, would be Elsie Pitka.
Oh, let's go back to Tucky for a minute. Is Tucky from Rampart area?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's from Rampart.
Elsie Pitka?
Elsie Pitka is from Beaver. And then on the Big Bend, right on the same stretch of the river, but on the Big Bend is our Wright's camp. And then, yeah. And then the next camp down, the permanent camp is our camp, Fate and Phillips. And used to be burned. Lillian hasn't been over here for 2 or 3 years. But, we started this one. And then,
Can we talk about this camp?
Yeah.
Mary Jane said she used to go out here and trap in wintertime.
Her folks trap this country in the wintertime. They camp back in the trees on the first bend of Hess Creek to get out of the, this blows like hell on the river. So they went for their winter camp. They camped behind the trees, so that to get out of the wind. And then the Evans trapped us, mostly the Evans, Peter Evans, her father, and I guess Gussie trapped it 1 or 2 years. A couple of the Woods, I think, were up here. There's been several people. But they had a camp. They trapped most of the women.
They live up there all winter. They log up the tent, they live in it. Sometimes double camp. That's pretty good.
Is there anything left back there of the old camp?
Some old cans and some trees cut down. That's about all you can see now.
The legs of a couple of old high caches,
There was an old stove. I think it's still there. That's about it.
Most everything that was any, it wasn't even any good. But the girls went back and got for artifacts from their old young childhood memory days. And then from here, there's only, when we came here, there was no camps between here and Rampart. And since we've been here, 3 years ago, by Alfred Woods, formed a camp down at across from the slide at 18 miles. below then, Bill Carlo started a fish camp at about 16 Mile. And below that, there used to be an old camp that was a permanent, used to be a cabin there. And that was a fish camp from the old days, from Pitka's camp. And that passed through several hands, and that was called 12 Mile. It used to be awful good fishing with wheels in there. And Georgiana Lincoln fishes out of Rampart, but she's got an eddy there. But the only really two camps along the river where people are staying in the summer now are Al Woods down here and the Carlo camp. There's usually somebody there.
The Spunky started one.
Spunky started one, yeah. I guess there's somebody there now, huh?
Yeah, Spunky's in and out of
Spunky's in and out of there. Yeah, that's Jenny Joseph's boy. They're all from Rampart. So if the river's filling up now, you're talking about camps that the people that didn't come from this area. And there must be, well, I counted I counted 5 camps between this camp and the landing, besides the ones that we've been talking about, the people who just come in and put a tent in the collapsible smokehouse up and start fishing.
Well, Harold Greenway's new this year, but he's from Rampart.
Well, he was from Rampart, Harold, but
He's up on Second Island.
yeah. Oh, but there's Terry Johnson, there's Barry Wyke, and the guy that he brought in, there's a lot of people just come in. They're landing on the sandbars with planes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a real Canada River type basket on it, you know. Howard Luke built the wheel for it.
Yeah, pretty shallow.
In Fairbanks. So.
Yeah. So if you couldn't find an eddy, Agnes couldn't find an eddy. You know, if it didn't have an eddy, you know why? Yeah. Because a lot of us, you know, we fish. We fish for subsistence. We fish commercially too. Of course, when we came here, there was just maybe 3 camps to look for eddies in a 40-mile stretch of river, and we kind of had, you know, if one eddy wasn't good in high water, we'd go to one that was. God's sake, you can't do that now. Yeah, the fact is, there's been a couple of, I guess a good way to put it is misunderstandings over a couple of eddies upriver. Yeah. You bet. Well, you have to, if you fished them, and you fish them every year, and you make, you know, that's part of your, the way you do things on this river. Why, nobody cares if somebody puts a net in that if you're not there. As long as when you come, why they pull in that. In fact, that's the way a lot of people do here.
My brother was animal.
Yeah.
I did say, open church 1 week.
Yeah.
That's where he is. We went up there a couple times. One time, found a net on the beach.
Yeah.
You were talking about the run this year, too. I'd like to ask you about that a little bit again.
You can have a crack.
Well, I don't know. You know, a run in one place might be real good. If a guy's got a good eddy or a good spot for a wheel, and in another place it might not be good. Depends really, I guess the run depends on how good a guy does fishing. But it started real early and just seemed to kind of be steady, but nothing real great. And some years, you know, it's really hit a real peak where you really, in 3 or 4 days or a week, you know, you'll just really bring him in. So it's hard to say, I guess. If a person has a good eddy or a good spot for a wheel and they do good, why any run is good. And if they don't, why then it's a slow run. And I don't know that people really know what these fish do anyway. You know, they're learning more about them, but one year one eddy's good, and next year it isn't.
That's true.
When did the run start this year? When did the fish start being caught?
When did it start? Must have been along about the middle of June. June the 4th.
Some of them came right after the ice run.
That's right. Yeah, it was early. They were reporting them down in They reported them down at South Hag and Milano. Must have been the end of May, something like that. Really, really early. Yeah. And I think they reached up here at Rampart about somewhere June 13th, 14th, somewhere along that area, middle of June. Ordinarily, you don't really get them up here then until you can always figure about the 1st of July to the 4th of July. So they were about 2 weeks, at least 2 weeks early.
What about the commercial fishing this summer on the river?
Oh, it hasn't been as good for kings. Don't know what it's going to be for chums. But the upper Yukon here, there hasn't been the buyers flying around that there had before. And then they were going to offer less because they said that the market was depressed, and most of the fishermen weren't willing to sell for what they wanted. So they just quit coming, and most of the fishermen had to find a market in town, or there were a few that were still buying. Wood was buying from Manly, and a couple of people, but most of them quit flying and buying.
Well, one thing about up to the Yukon River, you only got 2,500 kings you can sell. So commercially, king salmon aren't.
I think
that
2,000
big a thing.
maybe this year.
Maybe 2,000. I thought it was 2,000.
Last year it was more up here.
And then they shut her down. See, it's shut down commercially right now, up in this area.
Yeah, everything we catching now, we're either taking the pounds to the freezer or we're making strips out of.
That's right.
Are there any fish eggs being bought this summer?
Oh, yeah. They buy the eggs. Of course, you can't sell egg subsistence, so there's no eggs being bought now. No. Only commercial. So, I guess last year apparently somebody somewhere was taking advantage of the subsistence. They were killing the fish and taking the eggs, selling the eggs, and the fish was going to rot, so that shouldn't have. I don't know how much of that went on, but according to Fish and Game, that's the reason they passed that law.
You're not taping us, are you?
I'm going to start at tape recording. I like listening, but I'm going to forget everything. Can I talk about what I want to do?
The Easter egg hunt for the kids. Just got everything spotless and in place, you know. We had the Easter egg hunt for all those kids and turned them loose in that house. By the time they got through, you should have seen it. They were, oh, wow. It's all torn up. After all that work I went through. What year was that, do you remember? I don't know. Your kids were little. Well, early 40s? No, we didn't buy this place until 1945, I think, huh? Oh. Yeah, George was about 3 years 45 old. 45 and 60. 51 we left here. We moved back together. I'm glad we didn't sell it. We didn't want to buy the place. It's good thing. It's sad now we didn't. Oh, good thing. Now you can tell us what you want to do, Roger. You want me to talk? Agnes and I talk together. I gotta run and check that fish first.
Yeah, I agree.
44 life. How many quarts of fish in it? Sure. What do you want to know about?
Well, how long you been in Rampart?
Oh.
Changes you've seen?
Well, I was born and raised here. And I didn't leave here until I was 17 years old when I went away to school. And the reason I was so old when I left was because we had a real poor teacher, and she kept my niece and myself in the 7th grade for 4 years because she was too lazy to teach us. I stayed in the 7th grade, and I thought this was my life, you know. I didn't have any ambition to finish school because I thought there was no use, you know. With that teacher, I just stayed until I was ready to get married. And then finally we got a new teacher, and she was good. And one time she and I were working on I was in the 8th grade then finally, we were working on a math problem, and it had the answer in the back, and neither one of us could get it. She couldn't even get it. So it was really puzzling me, and I went home and I worked on it, and all of a sudden it came to me, we were just forgetting some little thing, division or something, I don't know what it was. And I got the answer. And I came back and Dana, that was really what inspired me. And I said, do you think I should go to high school? You know, real shyly. And she said, Kitty said, I was going to talk to you about that. This is Renee Shaw.
Oh, nice.
And I said, she said, would you? She said, I'd like to see you go away. I said, sure. So we asked my mother if I could go to the old boarding school, Old Creekman, you know. It was then a high school only. And she said, oh, gosh, your father would never have wanted you to go to that kind of a school. We couldn't afford anything else, but still, in those days, you know, nobody took anything for nothing. Everything was, we just paid for everything, except our old school with a fun teacher. So that's how it happened. At the age of 17, I left home, went to Klutna, and I stayed there for almost 3 years because we couldn't afford to go back and forth. None of the kids could afford that. So we just stayed there and learned everything. I'm really grateful to that school. That was one of the best things I think that ever happened to me. I learned to cook and sew and, you know, and had our high school studies at the same time. And in the summertime, we worked in the garden. We were happy. Just had a ball.
You're just naturally homemaker.
Really?
Because you do
Once in a
everything.
while, too, you know, having fun with the boys.
I can't picture you like that.
Well, any teenager, you know.
Oh, yeah.
So then, I loved the place, and I did really well there in school because, you know, I guess that one little incident was my inspiration. And so everything I tried after that had to be top. And so foolishly, I came home then, after being gone. I went through my junior year, and I thought, well, I would come home for a visit. So before I came home, my mother got me a job out at the mines cooking in a mining camp so that I could pay my way home and back. So I borrowed $50 from her to come home on, and that was the first time that I'd ever been in a pontoon, well, any plane, and I came home in a pontoon plane. 1938. So I cooked all summer out there at the Hunter Creek mine, and I was happy. Then that's where I met my husband. Fell in love, and instead of going back to school to finish, I got married. Yeah. So then we moved to Fairbanks, moved back and forth from Fairbanks to this place, bought this property, and had 6 kids, 7 with Willie, the one I kept. And then we moved to Fairbanks. And had another child, so we raised a family of 7 kids. And I didn't go back to work until I was, my youngest one was 8 years old. Then I decided, well, this is time to get going back to work, because times were kind of hard, you know, raising that many kids. So I went to work at the police station as a matron and booking officer. I worked there for over a year. And then I took a test for the state. And I'd had some typing, and I kind of brushed my way through. Took this test, and I passed the doggone test. So then I had to go to work at Fort Wainwright. I got that job because of that test. And here I was then employed as a secretary to a school principal. And also I was kept the attendance for, at that time, 5 schools, over 1,000 kids. Besides being secretary to the principal, one of the elementary schools. I stayed there, and I was working towards retirement. Oh, and then while I was here, too, I also blessed my way through and got the job of U.S. Commissioner. And I kept that job here for a little over 4 years, I think.
During that time, you had your twins.
Yeah. Recorded my own twins' birth and everything. They were born over here. So anyhow, when I was working towards retirement with the state, because that job here was a territory for over 4 years, that time would go into my retirement for the state. And then I was offered this job for Doyon, and I stayed hard to get because I said, I wasn't interested. And finally they offered me a salary that I couldn't turn down. So I switched schools then. The state, well, I retired from the state. That's what I did.
Oh.
And then I went to work for Doyon, which I don't regret. I love that job.
Good.
So that's the story of my life. Part of it.
You just come back every summer,
Yeah.
enjoy yourself and work.
Well, we started coming back just to enjoy the place just for the 4th of July holidays. And then one year we brought a net, just for the heck of it, and we caught 6 fish, I think, a total of 6 fish. And that's where that Georgiana got the bug. And so the next year we came back with the idea that we'd, go into it in a little heavier and put up enough fish for our own use. Because it was too hard to get, you couldn't even buy it at the time, the strips and the dried fish. And so this is how we started, and it worked into a real good thing. And I had to learn over again how to cut fish, but I remembered how my mother taught me. It kind of comes back to you fast after a while. Once you've learned it, I don't think you can really forget.
That's what I noticed today. I tried to cut that one fish somebody gave us.
Yeah?
And I noticed, poor, it just July.
Yeah. Well, you have to practice a little bit. After a while, it'll kind of come back again.
So the reef I gave, she cut part of it. So both of us put together.
It ruined the fish.
So we cooked part of it, half of it.
What are the different ways you prepare fish now when you're here?
When we're here, we cut what we call eating fish, and that's the slabs that are cut crosswise, and then we strip it, and then we cut the fillets. When you cut the eating fish, you have to fillet some of it off because it's too thick, and so those fillets we strip also and dry them, smoke and dry them, and of course all the other fish is all smoked too. And then we can the fresh fish, we can the salmon strips. We put up salmon bellies in kegs, salted down. And this year, my sister Addie, we put up some heads. She's salting down some heads in a keg. And let's see what else. And then we send to Fairbanks and fill our freezers, so we can eat fish all winter. And our friends can have. So
You give commercial fish in it?
Oh yeah, Georgiana did.
Oh.
Yeah, she has a commercial fishing license, but we don't sell, as much as we catch because there are other people who need to sell too, and then I'd rather put it up, for our own use first, because this is what we started out for, for our own use. But the commercial fishing pays for the truck and the gas and oil and the boat and motor, and pays all of our expenses. And
The law is pretty, what do you think about the fishing law?
oh, you mean, that's okay, I guess. As far as conservation goes, I suppose they have to do it. I don't know. Although some people say that it doesn't make any difference. We're required to pull the nets on Sunday night and not put them back in again until Tuesday. So the people up above, way up above, were trying to find out if they were catching any more than when ours were pulled. And they said it doesn't make any difference. One said it didn't make any difference. Texas Mayo said. But George Atlas said that he noticed the difference, that there's more fish then.
You said you learned from your mother?
Mm-hmm.
She used to fish around Rampart?
Oh, yes. As far back as I can remember, she fished until I was 14 years old. We fished up 4 miles above town here. And we didn't stay in town and fish. We stayed there all summer and fished. And then when I was 14 years old, she married my stepfather, and he moved us down 7 miles below town here. And we fished down there all summer. And that's where she taught us. We were little. Just we were just barely big enough to hang on to a king salmon when we had to walk out in the water with our bare feet and wash the fish. That was our job. And cooking for the dogs. That was your chore. You bet. She was a widow, and she needed a lot of help, and we knew it, And so during the summer months, she boarded dogs for the miners, $3 a month for each dog. So that was our chore to water and feed those dogs. We cooked every day for them. And we knew we had to help her, She needed to help them. We never regretted it. It was part of our lives. We lived up there. We didn't have a motor at the time either. And she had a fish net in about, probably a mile above our fish camp. And every morning and evening we'd go up and check that net. And we didn't go by a motorized vehicle either. We towed her up to a little rowboat, and she sat in the back and steered the boat, and we towed her up with a line, on shore. We were tiny, but my brother was about 8, and I was about 9, and Addie was about 13, I guess. And we'd run along the beach, putting on this line, It wasn't hard. It was easy. The boat ran smoothly. We'd run in our bare feet. The pilot. The pilot that's steering the boat. We'd run. Used to boat just right. Yeah. And she was expert. And we'd get to the fish wheel. My brother had a fish wheel. We'd get to the fish wheel, and we couldn't tow around that, so we'd have to jump in the boat and row her around that fish wheel. Each little one on an oar, sitting there and rowing, and she'd say, "Tia, tia," meaning more, give it all you've got. Paddle harder, harder. Then we'd row around that, then we'd get to the upper end of the wheel and go ashore and run along the beach again. So you're doing all you can, you're best. Once more. Oh. And I always tell my kids and my son-in-laws about this, and they laugh and say, they don't believe it, I don't believe that can be done. Believe it. So about every week we'd come down town here to get supplies and stuff. We'd float down and get all dressed up, had to be all neat and clean. We'd have to find a pair of shoes to wear. We hadn't worn shoes all week. And we'd come to town and get everything done, and then in the evening she'd hire this old man to take us back up. He had a little inboard motor. Oh, gosh, it just barely moved. And she paid him $5 to tow us back up to the fish camp. Then we'd go back up and stay another week. Oh, you were up above him? Yeah, 4 miles. Mm-hmm. Those were good days, though. They were hard, but they were good. It's just things we just get used to doing that kind of chores, and automatically know what to do, so it wasn't that hard. Sure, it was fun. You bet it was fun. It wasn't hard work, We all worked together, and without complaint. Yeah, working together was fun. And then she'd take us for blueberries, and after we'd cut fish all morning or help her cut fish, she'd take us out in the swamp for blueberries, and we didn't dare come home until everything we had was full. Then she'd sugar those down in a keg for fruit in the wintertime. That was our fruit. That, blueberries, cranberries, dried apples, and once in a while maybe we could afford some dried prunes. Oh, God.
And that was delicacy.
You bet. But we never laughed or anything. Oh, and then we'd come down from the fish camp and work, and